نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم. Inshallah, we will continue with our Nahwa lessons. So we've gone over all of the different ways that a word may appear when it is in one of the different cases in Arabic. So how it would appear if it's in Halatul Rafa, how it would appear when it's in Halatul Nasab, how it would appear when it's in Halatul Jar. We went into a bit more detail with the Ghair Munsarif because these words, غير منصرف words, only occur when they have specific conditions. There were 9 conditions and 2 were required for a word to be غير منصرف. We went over those. Now we will discuss the actual مرفوعات. So مرفوعات are words which are حالة الرفع. So they are usually the main part of a sentence, or they are regarded as the umda of a sentence. So the elements of a sentence which are considered essential. Majrurat and mansubat are usually additional information, the fadla of a sentence. And there are 8 types of marfu'at. So they are fa'il. Before I mention all of these 8 types, I do want to just note that from here onwards, we will actually be going over how the last vowel signs of a word would appear because of its grammatical position in a sentence. So here we're discussing, for example, a fa'il. When a word is a verb, when a word is a verbal subject, when it is the doer, then it will be in halatul rafa. And we've discussed previously how halatul rafa appears based on the word type. And then we have something known as na'ib fa'il, which is a substitute for. Sorry about that, my phone keeps randomly popping up with that page. I'll update my phone eventually, inshallah. But we have a na'ib fa'il, which is maf'ul really. It is an object which is used in place of a fa'il because the fa'il is not being mentioned. It's usually a noun which occurs after a passive verb. Then we have the mubtada, which is a subject, or you could call it the nominal subject. And then you have the khabar, which is information, the predicate, the news. You have the khabar, the information or the predicate of inna, and those words which have the same effect as inna. So in Arabic they say inna wa akhwatiha, akhwatuha, inna wa akhwatuha, inna and its sisters. But by sisters it means words which are similar to it. Then we have ism, the ism of the verb kana, and words and verbs of similar effect. So these are af'alun naqisa, they are incomplete verbs. So when the equivalent to a fa'il for a kana appears, then it will be marfu'. Then you have the noun or the ism of ma and la, which resemble laysa, and you have the khabar of la, which is used for negating collective nouns. When I wrote here, it is jins. Don't think of it as jins. There is no la which is specifically used for negating the jinn. It's talking about jins here, collective nouns. So we will discuss the fa'il now in more detail. So the fa'il is the verbal subject or the doer. It's a noun that has a verb before it, or a word which has the same amal, the same effect as a verb. So this essentially, it just means that the verb has an action. So the verb is an action, and this action is associated or ascribed to the fa'il, the verbal subject. So the word which is doing the action is known as the fa'il. So all verbs, all fi'ls, verbs must have a marfu' fa'il. So there must be a word in a sentence which has a verb. So when there's a sentence with a verb, there must be a word in it which will be halatul rafa. So this gives you a key already as to how to recite the last vowel sign of a word in a sentence. So we could, when we see a verb, automatically we'll know that there has to be a halatul rafa word somewhere here. But what makes it difficult is sometimes this word, this ism, this noun which occurs after the verb, it's sometimes apparent, mudhar, and sometimes it's concealed, mudmar. It's a dhamir, a hidden pronoun. And if it's a muta'addi verb, so if the verb is transitive, it will also have a maf'ul bihi. So examples of non-transitive verbs. Or lazim verbs is like qama zaydun. Zayd stood. It doesn't need an object. Whereas something like daraba zaydun, Zayd hit, then you need an object, because then the sentence is not complete yet. We know that the action of hitting is ascribed to Zayd, but we do not know upon whom that hitting will take effect. And this is the maf'ul bihi. As for an example of where a fa'il is mudhar, apparent, this is when you see the noun appear after the verb. For example, dhahaba zaydun. And an example of when the word, the ism, is mudmar, it's not apparent, it's concealed, hidden, then it's like, it's either zaydun dhahaba. So zaydun dhahaba, Zayd is not the fa'il for dhahaba. In fact, Zayd is the mubtada in this sentence, and dhahaba is a jumla fi'aliyya. And inside dhahaba is a fa'il, huwa, he. Huwa is just a pronoun, means he. So inside the word dhahaba, he is assumed. So there's an assumed fa'il inside the word dhahaba, and this pronoun refers back to Zayd, which is before it. So it will be Zaydun dhahaba. So similarly, the fa'il can also be a pronoun which is clear, the dhamir bariz. Dhamir marfu' muttasil. So when there is an attached nominative pronoun like darabtu Zaydan, if you're studying sarf, then you'll be aware of these different patterns. So darabtu means I hit Zayd. So just to note, sorry for all the pop-ups, if the fa'il is ism zahir, then the verb will always be singular. So this means that the noun, the ism, is apparent and it's clear after the verb, like dhahaba zaydun, then the verb itself will always be singular. So if I said dhahaba rajulun, it's one man. Rajul means one man, a man, any man. So a man went. Dhahaba means to go. If it was two men, I would still say dhahaba rajulani. Rajulani is dual, but dhahaba will remain singular because the ism, the fa'il, is zahir, is apparent. Also, if it was ar-rijal, which means many men, it's several, it's plural, you'd still say dhahaba rijal, not dhahabun ar-rijal. Dhahabu ar-rijal. Sorry, got confused between Maldi and Mudari there for a second. So you wouldn't say dhahabu ar-rijal, dhahabu ar-rijal. You would say dhahab ar-rijal. However, if the verb has a noun within it referring back to a noun, a proper noun or apparent noun, then in those scenarios, the verbs will always be according to the preceding noun. So if it was ar-rijalu as a mubtada, as a subject, and after it came the word dhahaba, then this dhahaba would be in the plural form, and you'd say ar-rijalu dhahabu. Or if it's ar-rajulani, it would be ar-rajulani dhahaba. And similarly, if it was singular, ar-rajulu dhahaba. Zahaba. ذهب, sorry. Then we have verbs which are feminine. So in Arabic, there's a difference between masculine words and feminine words. So we don't have this uh, we don't have an obvious equivalent to this in English, but some other languages like Spanish do have masculine words and feminine words. Arabic is the same. We have feminine words and masculine words. Feminine is muannath in Arabic, and masculine is mudhakkar. So you have different types of feminine words. We've covered these briefly before. We have muannath haqiqi, which is a genuine feminine word. So these are words which have male counterparts, usually animal male counterparts. Humans are included in this. So in these scenarios, when the word is genuinely feminine, by its meaning we could tell that this word is a feminine word, like imra'a. Right? The word imra'a means woman. So it's a genuine feminine word. It's a genuine feminine word. So it will have a verb, a fi'l, which is also feminine. For example, we could say قامت هند. Hind is so like Zayd is always used for male examples. Hind is often used for female examples in Nahwa books. So qama is the singular masculine verb for stand, and qamat is the feminine form. So Hind is a feminine word, genuinely feminine. It's literally feminine. It has feminine in meaning because it refers to a woman or a girl. Qama will be transformed into the feminine form, and it will be recited qamat hindun. Interestingly, if there's a mu'annath haqiqi, a genuine feminine word, and it has another word in between it and the verb, so between the verb and the ism there is another word, like it could be a dharf. If you remember, we said dharf was something which refers to a time or place. Then you can read the verb mudhakkar, masculine, or mu'annath, feminine. For example, daraba al-yawma hindun. Daraba al-yawma hindun. So that means Hind hit today. So you could also say darabatil yawma hindun. Likewise, if mu'annath ghayr haqiqi, so it's not a genuine feminine word, it's just a word that's feminine because it might have ta marbuta at the end, or the Arabs have just used it as feminine for no apparent reason, or that we know of. It's just that when we were exposed to the Arabic language, we found that these words were often associated with femininity. Then that verb for that word can be mudhakkar or muannath. So shams, which means the sun, is considered feminine. So you could say tala'a shams, that the sun rose, or you could say tala'atish shams, which means the same thing. The broken plural also follows this rule. So even though rijal means men, you could say qamar rijal or qamatir rijal. So you could use the feminine verb or the masculine verb for broken plurals. And these are when these nouns are mudhhir, they are apparent, right? They come after the verb. But if the verbs are associated to words or nouns which are mudmar, so as we said, hidden or concealed or assumed pronouns, then the verb would always be feminine. For example, ash-shamsu tala'a. So we said ash-shams was a feminine word, and if it's the mubtada of a sentence and its khabar is a jumla fi'aliyya, a verbal sentence, then there will have to be a pronoun referring back to it, and that pronoun will be represented by the verb being in a feminine state. So ash-shamsu tala'at. So that ta at the end of the verb would highlight that this verb is feminine. And the Jama Mukassar or Jama Taksir, the broken plural follows this. Another interesting thing to note is if the word itself, in terms of Jama Taksir, broken plurals, if they are masculine in meaning, then they could still have a plural masculine verb follow them. So ar-rijalu doesn't need to have qamat after it. It could have ar-rijalu qamu because of its meaning. Next, it's important to note that sometimes we'll find that the object, the maf'ul bihi, comes before the subject, the fa'il. And if there's a qarina which removes confusion, this is permissible. Even this is permissible only when there is a sign, when there's something indicating which one is the verb, which one is the doer, and which one is the object. What is the subject and what is the object? For example, the word kumthara, which means pear, if that comes before the word Yahya, so these words both have the short alif maqsura at the end. There's no visible sign of a case with them. So if they appear in a sentence, if you could still have the word pear precede Yahya, because it's obvious that Yahya is the one that is consuming the pear and not the other way around. So you could say akal al kummathra Yahya. Right, the pear, you wouldn't translate that as the pear ate Yahya. You would say that Yahya ate the pear. However, if the example was something like daraba Musa Isa, so it's also, once again, has a short alif at the end. This could cause confusion because daraba means to hit, and there's nothing indicating which word is the subject and which word is the object. So therefore, in this scenario, the fa'il must always come first. So daraba Musa Isa will always mean that Musa hit Isa and not the other way around. So it's interestingly, you can also omit a verb so it's talking about omission now when you can, so it means not saying the word. So you could, which is hadaf in Arabic. So if there's an indication, a qarina, then you can omit a verb. For example, if someone said to me, "Who stood?" I don't have to say Zaid stood. In response, I could just say Zaid, because it's obvious from the question what the verb is. So in the example, the question itself is the qarina, the indication of what that verb is. So therefore, I don't have to say Zaid stood, even in English. Someone could ask me who stood, I could just say Zaid. So even in English, it's permissible for me to omit the verb here. Likewise, in Arabic, if someone asks me who stood, man qama, I could just say Zaid. I don't have to say qama Zaidun or Zaidun qama. Similarly, you can also remove the fi'al and the fa'il, the verb and the doer, subject, both of them. For example, if someone said to me and asked me a question, a yes or no question, and I just said yes, like na'am, which means yes, then in those scenarios, I didn't even mention the subject or the verb. So if someone said to me, did Zaid stand? Aqama Zaidun. I don't have to say Naam, qama Zaidun. Yes, Zaid stood. I could just say Naam. So the question itself is an indicator. So, and the next type of marfu is naib fa'il, and it's quite fitting that this is the next one, since we were just mentioning omissions. And a naib fa'il is essentially a word where the fa'il, the doer, is omitted. And that's what we will continue with next time, inshallah. If there's any questions, please leave a comment, or if there's any room for improvement, please leave a comment. You will have to forgive me because sometimes my daughter is around and she makes noises, so you'll have to forgive that, inshallah. But if there's anything else, please let me know. And you'll also have to forgive all the pop-ups I get here and then. But inshallah, this has been beneficial and useful to you so far. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.